Serial killer who was almost released from prison 6 years ago after serving a small fraction of his sentence is up for parole again.
This time it appears he has a good chance at being released. The family of the murder victim, they are furious the state keeps trying to release him. The investigative unit and Chris Nakamoto here now with renewed frustration from the victim's family.
The prosecutor who worked to convict Samuel Galbraith said he was only convicted of one murder, but they believe he's responsible for 2 other murders in their area, too. When the investigative unit exposed the situation 6 years ago, Governor John Bel Edwards blocked his release. Nearly 40 years ago, the community near Fort Polk in western Louisiana was rocked with a series of women disappearing over a 2-year span. Pam Miller was last seen at a convenience store in Leesville in May of 1989. Her remains discovered 6 months later. Then, Tammy Call, a high school student, disappeared near a convenience store in February of 1990. Her remains weren't found until 7 years later. Retired Vernon Parish District Attorney Asa Skinner says he has no doubt who did it.
He had told his friend that he had dreamed and had visions of going to a convenience store, getting a woman, kidnapping them, raping them, and then killing them to see what it felt like.
The he Skinner is referring to is Samuel Galbraith, a rapist and murderer who was set to walk out of prison in 2017. Galbraith was a soldier at Fort Polk when he abducted Karen Hill, raped her, tied her to a tree, and shot her in the left eye in 1988. Galbraith served 23 years in a Louisiana prison after he was caught nearly 10 years later and convicted.
I know he did one, and I'm sure he did the other 2. And I can't understand why people on the parole board can't back up and look at all the facts.
Galbraith was sentenced to more than 70 years, and tonight Jessie McWilliams, the mother of Karen Hill, says she got another slap in the face recently.
Well, he's up for parole again, the 24th of May. They'll go through like they did everything else, and if they think they're going to get him out. And no, he shouldn't get out.
There's not a day that goes by that she doesn't think about her daughter.
Do your job and don't let him out. I think that, he didn't just murder my daughter. It was a heinous, vicious murder. I mean, he raped her and then tied her to a tree. And I've seen that picture of her laying on the ground.
In 2017, the parole board voted unanimously to release Galbraith.
He's everybody's buddy at the correctional place.
This is audio from that parole hearing.
People trust you. But the crime is still there. We can't change this crime. This crime has already happened. We can't change it. I don't have any more questions.
That's a board member addressing Galbraith. With 6 years passing and still only a fraction of his sentence served, the victim's family and prosecutors remain wondering how this is happening.
It was just unconscionable, I thought, that this particular person would get out after serving less than 1/3 of his sentence for such a heinous murder and rape as what he committed.
For Jessie McWilliams, it's like a nightmare.
There's something that's not quite right.
It continues to replay in her mind.
I just don't think he should get out. And I can go down and take care of him, but then they'd put me in jail and they wouldn't do parole for me. I'd be there forever.
In 2017, the governor blocked his release because the victim's family was not properly notified about his parole hearing and didn't attend. Galbraith is scheduled to go before the parole board on May 24th. For the investigative unit, I'm Chris Nakamoto.
The parole board says he is now eligible for a rehearing because it has been 2 years since his most recent denial in December of 2020.
And today is May 24th, and he had his parole hearing. What we're going to do now is watch it. At the end of the hearing, we're going to go through the many different documents that detail this crime. But with that, well, let me make sure that I have the proper screen shared. With that, let's go.
Parole is reconvening. Time is 9:02 a.m. With the offender
please introduce yourself and give us your Department of Corrections ID?
My name is Samuel Galbraith, and my ID is 422-350.
Thank you, Mr. Galbraith. My name is Alvin Roche. To my left is Ms. Pearl Wise, and to my right is Mr. Pete Freeman. This is probably your second or third hearing, and I'm going to go over the process with you. I will enter some information into the record. Once that information is in the record, we'll conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we allow Warden Butler to make comments, remarks, observations, and then we will allow your guests to make comments, and then we have in opposition with Cynthia Laversphere, the Assistant DA of Vernon Parish, Mr. James Hill, the victim's husband, Ms. Luann Gregory, the victim's sister, and Ms. Cynthia, and I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the last name, but a friend of the victim is here. She will, in support of the victim, and she will not make a statement. Elyan Hunt with the offender, would you please introduce yourself, starting with the lady nearest the door to my left?
Go ahead.
I'm Donna Palisota. I'm aunt to Samuel Galbraith. I'm
Good.
his aunt.
Okay.
And I'm Janie Canino, Sam's mother.
Thank you.
I'm Anthony Palisota. I'm the uncle of Sam.
Okay.
I'm Michelle Galbraith, Sam's wife.
Yes.
Johnny Galbraith, Sam's father.
Joe
Okay.
Galbraith, I hope I'm his aunt.
Now, Mr. Galbraith, which three will be speaking?
Be my Aunt Donna and my mother.
Okay. Your Aunt Donna, your mother, and you have one more.
We don't have anybody at this time, you know, I mean, we were just under the impression it was just two.
It's your aunt and your mother.
Just your aunt and your mother. Yes, sir.
Representing Mr. Galbraith, Mr. Nordike, would you please introduce yourself for the record and tell us how you'd like to proceed?
Good morning, Mr. Roche and panel. I would like to proceed in the normal fashion. I'm Keith Nordike, appearing on behalf of Mr. Galbraith, but I would proceed in the normal fashion with Mr. Galbraith speaking and me closing.
Thank you, Mr. Nordike.
Thank you, sir.
And after everything is complete, Mr. Galbraith, before Mr. Nordike speaks, you will be given an opportunity to make a brief statement. You understand the process?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Galbraith, you're currently 53 years old. You're a first felony offender. Your offenses are manslaughter. You were convicted in Vernon Parish on February 3rd, year 2000, and you received 1,028 days of jail credit. Attempted aggravated rape, you were sentenced in Vernon Parish on the same day, February 3rd, year 2000, and received a 5th-year sentence. The manslaughter sentence was 21 years, and you also received 1,028 days jail credit on the attempted aggravated rape. Your total sentence is 71 years. Your parole date was April 23rd, 2017. Your adjusted good time date is May 11th, 2029, and your full term date, June 15th, 2065. Is all this information correct?
To the best of my knowledge, sir, yes, sir.
First of all, Mr. Galbraith, I see where you earned 218 hours of good time off your adjusted good time date. When did you start receiving good time? Because I see programs that amount to more than 218 days. Did you receive good time when you were first sentenced, or did you get that privilege later on in the sentence?
I think that I was eligible for the good time whenever I signed my plea. I think that I started earning it, I believe, as soon as I could. There was a few programs, I think that at the beginning of my incarceration, that they didn't receive good time, and later on they became good time eligible. And so I never did keep up really, a tight track on what those, how many days I was getting for those. I think I just finished up the victim impact, and it'll pretty much max out the rest of my good time.
Okay, great. Okay, outstanding. Mr. Galbraith, when you were originally arrested in April of 1997, the charges were first-degree murder, aggravated kidnapping, attempted aggravated rape, and armed robbery. Is that correct?
I believe so, sir.
Okay. And then in the year 2000, you made a plea deal with the state of Louisiana and the victim's family. And what was that plea deal?
That plea deal was for I think 71 years, 50 on the attempted aggravated rape, 21 on the manslaughter, because that's what it carried at the time. I think that we negotiated that with Mr. Asa Skinner and my lawyer, Ms. Phyllis Mann. There was a deal because they were originally going to give me the armed robbery and manslaughter, because armed robbery didn't carry good time back then in 1988. They changed it to the attempted aggravated rape, and so I would be parole eligible under the 2045.
Okay, so therefore, you pled guilty and took the plea deal to avoid a life sentence. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was the death penalty on the table at that time?
Yes, sir. I think that they were seeking the death penalty at that time. Yes, sir.
So therefore, you pled guilty, you agreed with the state of Louisiana and the victim's family for 71 years to avoid the death penalty and or a life sentence. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Those are some of the contributing factors. Yes, sir.
Now, you committed this crime on November 21st, 1988. You were arrested April 23rd, 1997. It was 8.5 years between the time you committed the murder of Miss Karen Hill and the time you were arrested. You were military at the time. You entered the military in July of 1987. And some 16 months after this, you committed the murder of Miss Karen Hill. Then 19 months after that, you departed the military on June, I think, 29th, 1990. What were you doing? What was your life like for 8.5 years as a free man after murdering Miss Hill? What were you doing? Were you married? Did you have kids? Did you have a job? You left the military in 1990 and you weren't arrested until 1997. What were you doing for the 8.5 years in between the time of committing and arrest for the crime?
At that time, whenever I got out, I met my dad along with my Aunt Jo and stuff in Dallas, and wanted to help my dad. That was our original plan, was to help him get his business going at the time. So once I met them, we moved back down to the South Texas, started getting his business going. After some time there, I decided that I would go back to college and come back from Houston, come back down to the Corpus Christi area, continue to help my dad, but try and further my education, during the weekdays. Did that, along those lines and stuff. I did meet someone, we did get married and stuff, eventually we did move back down to Texas once I finished my education in Houston, and continued to help Dad, get the business going. I took a job there as an electrician there for Scott Electric in Corpus Christi as a job during the week, helping Dad again on the weekends. And I continued that path pretty much, until I was arrested.
You enjoyed your freedom, you went back to Texas, your dad started a business, you got married, and just had a normal life.
Yes, sir. I mean, I was a tax-paying, law-abiding citizen. Like I said, from what I had done, it was definitely eye-opener as to what kind of individual, I was at that time and stuff, whenever I committed this crime, it was a terrible thing. And it opened my eyes to, do I want to be a person like that and stuff? Is that something I want to do? And that was the furthest thing from my mind. I wanted to do right and to be a productive citizen, and take care of my family and do the things that, a man should do.
Mr. Galbraith, at your departure from the military in June of 1990, you were discharged under honorable conditions?
Yes, sir.
You were charged honorably because the military knew nothing about this egregious crime that you had committed. Am I correct?
You are correct, sir.
Now, the last hearing was on December 1st, 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I just was saying, yes, I had one in, I think it was 2016, and then another one in 2020.
But we're talking about your last hearing.
Pardon me, yes, sir.
December 1st, 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were denied by a vote of 2-1. 2 members voted to deny, and 1 member voted to grant. The reasons given were law enforcement opposition, the victim's family adamantly opposed, and the violent sexual nature of the offenses in the proximity of your good time date. Is that correct?
I believe so, sir.
So tell me about the programs that you've completed since the last hearing.
Okay, well, some of the programs since the last hearing, I know that
Tell me about the programs you completed after the last hearing.
yes, sir. I believe one was new mindset, was one I believe it was right at some time. I've completed the victims, impact program recently. I did the victim, accountability letter. I sit there and started a program, that's an ongoing program, Frederick Douglass program. And that is just an ongoing program and stuff, with the prison. I'm trying to think of anything else. I think that those are the few. What's that?
Serve, I think you completed the Serve Safe program, right?
No, sir, I haven't done any ServSafe programs, dealing with culinary. No, sir.
Yes.
No.
Okay. Okay. Tell me about your organizational participation since the last hearing.
Well, since the last hearing and stuff, part of the Frederick Douglass project, which is a project that was just introduced into the Louisiana prison system. I think it's the only one in Louisiana, and it is it's a man's vision and stuff, to bring people from the outside back into from the outside into prison to speak with a few inmates from the prison. And what the goal of the program is to rehumanize people and stuff, and help those people kind of see what we are and hear, that we are people and stuff that some of us make terrible mistakes in life, but we still have a commonality among us. We're still people, still have the same likes and dislikes and goals in life. That was one of them. And
Mr. Galbraith, I like you just to mention the programs. You don't have to give an extensive explanation of the program. Have you had any involvement with Veterans Association?
yes, sir. I was one of the founding members of the only post, I think, in the Department of Corrections, across America. It's post 432, and it's of the American Legion. And we still stay, there's a program there. And it's
Any involvement with the JC?
We do not have a JC's program here, sir. There's a health and fitness. I'm the vice president of health and fitness. I'm the vice president of the Walk Talk, which is the new prison magazine. Health and fitness, matter of fact, we've sponsored numerous events, for skilled nursing, as well as we have a event coming up this weekend trying to help bring sports, get people out of the dorms, and get them back into shape, and some of the older fellas get some participation.
Okay. Any other community service involvement?
Oh, as far as the skilled nursing, a lot of our work, or my work and stuff, considers with the skilled nursing, with the health of the overall community. I cover a lot of events. We sponsor a lot of various events, writing, reading essays, and we hold classes for various programs throughout the prison. Mentor.
Tell me about your disciplinary conduct since the last hearing.
Well, I've not received a write-up since I've been at Hunt's, and I think that's been since about 2010.
Great. Outstanding. Tell me what your current job assignment is.
My current job assignment is I'm an assistant editor for the prison magazine, The Walk Talk.
Okay. And are you a trustee at what level?
I'm a trustee, and I'm not sure. I think I'm not sure what level I can take pictures and You know, I think, as long as, escorted go anywhere in the prison, minimum 3 there.
Minimum 3, great. Okay. Tell us what your initial transition plan is.
My initial transition, plan would be that I would, go back home to my, family and stuff in South Texas, which is in the Corpus Christi area. I would, then take up, responsibilities with my father and stuff, you know, as, trying to run the family business. I have a lot to learn there, but, you know, get back in touch with the modern time. But, that would be my initial deal, is to get back working, get my wife, from the Dallas area back down there, take care of my mother, my father, my wife, start working, become a tax-paying citizen, and, you know, try and build a future and stuff. You know, I've, almost 54 years old now, and, put a little money up, you know, so I'm not a tax burden. I'm not one for welfare or anything like that. I want to work for mine.
Tell me your long range plans. You're 54 years old. You have maybe 20 years of good work left. Tell me what your long range plans are.
My long range plans would be, the same, to take over, you know, eventually take over the family business and stuff. I would like to try and increase the profits there. I do have a sister, and she has 2 small kids and stuff at this time. I have a wife, you know. I mean, I would like to increase the profitability of the company. It does have a number of employees that their families, you know, rely upon that company and stuff in order to put a roof over their head. So I want to make sure that we're all prospering, and that is my plans and stuff. You know, to make sure that it is a profitable, prospering business to take care of not only my family but the people that work for us.
Thank you, sir. Let's talk about drugs and alcohol. Have you ever abused illegal drugs?
I've experimented with drugs whenever I was in the military, sir. Yes, sir. Since I've been incarcerated, no.
So, what was your drug of choice?
I had tried LSD and ecstasy whenever I was in the military, you know, and I've tried marijuana, you know, when I was in there, but it was a kind of a get together there again, one of those things where I was not putting myself with the greatest of crowds, but I was trying to fit in, you know, with some of those people, and I was doing, you know, experimenting with those drugs with them on the weekends.
So you joined the military a month after high school graduation. I think you were about 19. So did you use drugs before the military?
No, sir. I actually thought that marijuana that you smoked was actually those 5 leaves, and that shows you just how naive I was to drugs. But yes, I did start experimenting with drugs whenever I got in the military, but had no idea what they were before getting in the military.
Did you ever abuse alcohol?
No, sir. I've drank some alcohol, you know, before, but I've never, you know, never abused drugs. I mean, alcohol.
Do you consider yourself a drug addict?
This is what I feel about drugs, alcohol, or anything that, you know, you might have any type of problem with, you know, is that if you recognize that problem and stuff, you recognize those triggers that would maybe make you think about possibly indulging in whatever that might be. And, you know, once you recognize those, you take yourself out of that situation, or you either look at the circumstances that whenever you did do any of those factors and stuff, what they got you into. And, you know, most people, you know, definitely myself, whenever I see that, I don't want any part of what those things can bring to you. I want to be a good man. I want to take care of my family, and you know, want to right maybe some wrongs and stuff, you know, I've had in life. And so yes, I recognize those, and I stay away from them. You know, and I think that sharing with people and keeping a support system not only for yourself but for others as well, it's always a good thing. for people to support one another and help keep them on track.
Do you think it would be necessary? Do you think it would be necessary when you're released that you monitor your addiction because you have used various types of illegal drugs? Do you think it would be wise to attend in a meeting?
I think that it would be wise and stuff, As a matter of fact, I've already checked into 2 places there in Beeville, which is the area that, my father lives in. They actually have 2 meetings on Fridays. They have 2 various groups. One meets at 8, one meets at 12 there in the Beeville area. And so, yes, that would be my plans and stuff, to try and attend and have some type of support system, not only for myself, but for others in that area.
Thank you. Mr. Galbraith, you have opposition to your early release. The opposition comes from Judge Bennett of the 30th JDC, who submitted a very strong statement in opposition. Mr. Terry Lambright, PA of the 30th JDC, is very adamantly opposed to any early release, and he has sent a representative, and that assistant DA will make a statement later on in this hearing. Sheriff Sam Craft of Leesville submitted a very strong letter of opposition. There's over 25 letters of opposition from family members, friends, community leaders, community at large, classmates, and I have over 779 signatures in opposition to your early release. You have a low risk assessment. You have a low needs assessment. I'm going to go to your institutional annual report. You've been in DC, you've been in DOC custody for 23 years. I think your total incarceration is about 26 years. You've been convicted of 2 violent offenses and 1 sex offense. As I said, you had a low risk assessment. You've completed anger management. You've completed your sex offender treatment. You have good family support. And your formal job description is with the Institution magazine, but it's a recording clerk 3, according to the records. Would you like to add any other information that's important to you, Mr. Galbraith?
As far as that goes, I mean, I think that, in the 27 or right at 27 years that I've been locked up, I've had 2 write-ups on there, and I think that I've been a continuing work in progress and stuff from the day that I came to prison. I think that
Mr. Galbraith, do you have any other achievements, any other programs, or you will be given a chance to make a closing statement at the end.
All right.
Do you have any other program or community involvement organization that you would like to mention?
I think that I've mentioned all of those, sir, and I think that those are in my jacket, as well.
And I'd like to differ with you. You were arrested on April, I think, sometime in April 23rd, 1997. And April 27th of 2023 would be 26 years, not 27. You've been incarcerated for 26 years, not 27. Warden, well, right before I get to the warden, You also have letters of support. You have 12 or 13 letters of support from your wife, your mother, your father, your stepmother, your godfather, aunts, uncles, father-in-law, and friends. You have an overwhelming family support, and at least 13 of those have submitted letters to us in support of your early release. Warden Barlow, do you have any comments, remarks, observations at this time?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Roche. First, I'd like to say to the victim's family, my heart goes out to you, and thank you for being here today, because I know it's difficult. And also thank you to Mr. Sam's family. Y'all being here to support him. I know it means a lot to him. That being said, Sam's been a model inmate here. He works hard. He helps a lot of people. He hasn't had a disciplinary write-up, I think, since 2008. I think he said 2010. He's done well. He's done a lot of accomplishments. I know he's done some terrible things in the past, but he hasn't really demonstrated that here since his incarceration. He's been doing well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ward Barlow. Mr. Freeman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Galbraith, you said you experimented with LSD and ecstasy while in the Army?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
On the night of this event, were you on LSD or ecstasy?
I think that we had done some type of drugs that weekend, but to be honest with you, sir, I cannot recall exactly what date that was, if that fell on a Monday or a Sunday or something. I can't remember, but I was experimenting from time to time, so I cannot accurately recall, sir, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. White.
No question.
At this time, I'm going to hear from Donna.
Yes, sir.
Would you give us your statement? You have 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, sir.
He said,
You
yeah.
have 3
Yes, sir. Can I stand up?
Sure.
Okay. My name is Donna Palisota, and I'm Sam's aunt. Over the last 27 years that Sam has been incarcerated, I have seen him grow into a mature, loving, and thoughtful 53-year-old man. He has expressed to my husband and I that he is remorseful to what had happened to the victim and her family, and he told me that he made a terrible decision that day. He said that being remorseful has changed his feelings and his actions towards people. He has stated that life is precious and that he looks at life differently now than he used to. He said he wants to be a part of the community, and he wants to help the people in general, and he wants to help his aging parents. I truly believe him being remorseful is the key to change. He has taken several self-help and self-improvement classes over the years of being incarcerated. He has shown a level of growth and maturity as an individual, and his actions line up with that. I believe Sam's exemplary conduct of having only 2 write-ups, his status of a trustee, and his trustworthiness and his responsibilities that he has to acquire by being on the Walk Talk magazine, which he's a part of, is showing of who Sam really has become. This is his 3rd time for being up for parole, and I'm prayerful and I'm hopeful that the parole board will consider parole and give him a second chance. My husband and I have supported Sam the entire time that he's been incarcerated. We have visited him, we have mailed him letters, we have mailed him cards, and he calls us on the phone to visit with us on the phone. If he is paroled, my husband and I will continue to support Sam. whether it's to encourage him and guide him, whether it's to give him emotional support, whether it's for financial support, and we will check on him periodically from time to time to check to see if he's doing okay when he's paroled. We, his mother, his father, and my husband and I are his support system. We love him very much. We will make every effort to make sure that he makes a successful transition back into society as a responsible citizen. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, madam.
Yes, sir.
Ms. June, you can keep your seat. Would you make your statement?
Hi, I am Sam's mother, Jane Canino, and I'm here today to not only say that I know that my son is remorseful and he is very sorry for what he did on that November day, that he will never forget, and neither will I or anyone that's affiliated with our family. He is very remorseful, and I'm hoping that the family will forgive my son and to be forgiving of that act that he did. And I'm here to not talk about that so much as the rehabilitation that my son has done. I've come every single month except during the pandemic. I visited him each and every weekend, once a month, and I've seen how he has grown, how he has taken his life back, and he wants to do better for everybody. He wants to help his family, not only his family, but the community. He is involved in that Frederick Douglass group. It's a very elite group because it's the only one in the state of Louisiana. And he is always looking forward to saying something that helps those imprisoned to make it a reality outside of prison walls. And I would like to say that I know that my son will never forget Karen and how bad it has been on her family. And I know that they are very hurtful because of what my son did to them. But I know that he truly has changed. He has shown remorse. He's shown compassion, kindness, trustworthiness. He's now a trustee. And with all this, he has changed his life and changed the lives of other inmates. They look up to Sam, and Sam is a model prisoner. He hasn't gotten into any kind of incidents where that he would get write-ups or anything. He's always going above and beyond to help others. And I hope that in my final say that I know what the parents or relatives of Karen went through, and I've walked through with my son the same walk that he has taken. His father has taken that same walk because he is our only child, my only child. His father has another child, but.
Ms. Jane, would you wrap up?
Okay, I just would like my Mrs. McWilliams to forgive my son. I asked her to forgive. I don't ask her to forget, but to please give him a second chance in life outside of prison walls. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jane. At this time, with Mr. James Hill open his mic and give us your statement.
Yes, y'all got my letter that I sent in. Just to highlight a couple of things. This was no robbery gone wrong, as his lawyer would previously make mention of. I spent 30 years in the military, retired. Typically, soldiers aren't up at 3 o'clock in the morning unless they're doing something they shouldn't be doing or they're getting ready to leave the area. And I will tell you, the date was a Monday, the 21st of November, 1988, because my birthday was on Sunday, the 20th of November, 1988. And I will tell you what haunts me with this whole thing is the horror that she must have felt that evening and that morning. I got notified friends of mine that were in contact with her on the phone because they were having a baby, and he came to my house at about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning and said, "Hey, stop by the store and the police are out there and Karen's not around anywhere." So I go down to the store and talk to the police, and she's gone. They don't know what happened to her. Paper delivery guy is the one that found the store unoccupied. Then later on, I find out where she was found at by some hunters, and it's in a secluded area. It's a place called Little Cypress Recreation Area, but that wasn't an improved area back then. It was just nothing but woods in the Kashtashy National Forest with a pond in the middle of it. And I've been to there since then several times, and the tree that he tied her to and shot her at is still standing there. But I can't imagine what she was feeling when he came in, because he probably came in earlier in the evening and then decided to come back when he saw she was working, pulled a gun to rob the store, then abducted her from the store, and then transported her about 10 miles, skirting along Fort Pope to this area. It was dark out. She has no idea what's going on. And he rapes her. It wasn't no attempted aggravated rape. He raped her and then shot her in the head, in the face, while she was tied to a tree. I want you to think, how would you feel if that was your daughter, your sister, your wife that somebody did this to, and they've only served less than about a third of the sentence that they were given? The only reason they did the plea deal because evidently the defense lawyer that he had knew more about the 2045 law than the Vernon Parish DA's office did. Otherwise, I cannot believe that they would have accepted that if they knew what that law was. So I implore you to deeply think of how you would feel if Karen was your sister, your daughter, your wife, and she was brutally raped and murdered and basically left for dead, tied to a tree.
Mr. Hill, would you wrap it up?
I implore you to deny his parole. And I will fight that until the day I die. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Now we're going to hear from Ms. Karen Hill's sister, Luann. Luann, would you open your mic and give us your statement?
I am the sister of Karen Hill. It has been said that time heals wounds. Well, my hurt remains as the day as Samuel wanted to carry out his fantasy. Wondering what it would feel like to rob a store, kill someone, words that were spoken to Vernon Parish Chief Detective from two of Samuel's friends, Eric Wass and John Higgins. Dealing with this hurt every 2 years, reliving the possibility of Samuel being paroled for good behavior is unconscionable. This is the first time I have gone face to face with the killer of my sister, Samuel. I pray it is the last. This is way too much for me and my family to take. This is way too much for my mother to take. As she has always spoke on behalf of our family. She has been so sick the last few weeks, just thinking about the day again. Samuel has already taken the best part of our family, Karen. Again, this is absolutely unconscionable to even have to sit here, look at him, hear his fake apologies, which mean nothing to me or my family. He has an agenda to get out of prison. So he has fooled everyone that he is a changed man. Ha. Anyone can turn off and on kind of behavior, emotions to get what they want. Let's remember one thing here, that he committed a heinous crime, got caught, convicted, and was sentenced for 71 years, to which he has only served a third of his sentence. Let remind me of the crime he inflicted on my beautiful, loving, caring sister, Karen, who would help a living soul. Samuel raped, tied my sister to a tree, and shot her in the eye while she was looking at him and left her for dead. Should this person be out in society? Absolutely not. As you sit here and listen to me and my family tell you why this monster Samuel should not be released from prison, think of someone you love, someone you share everything with, and one day they are taken away from you, not by natural causes, but by a heinous crime. Would you want that criminal to be released on good behavior? I sure hope not. Samuel was a soldier with the army. They are to serve and protect, not to kill your own. A loving civilian as my sister, just doing her job with her whole future in front of her, was taken away. Karen and I are 11 months apart. We are the same age for a month. We were so close in every way, celebrated our birthdays together. Samuel took all that away from us. I miss our talks. I miss Karen's beautiful smile. I miss her picking on me. I miss Karen asking me to do her hair. I miss Karen asking me to borrow my clothes. I miss everything close sisters do. Karen would have been a great mother and aunt. Those dreams were taken away from her because Samuel acted on a fantasy and followed through by raping, shooting her in the eye, and left for dead. 4 months after my sister was brutally murdered, my father died of a broken heart. He was a tough guy, and at the age of only 50, this was just way too much for him. He not only lost his daughter, but he could not take seeing his children so worked up and could not understand why. Why did this happen to such a loving person who would not literally hurt a fly? I've never seen my dad cry. He just could not stop. Through the years, I've needed my best friend, my sister Karen. I would have loved her to be able to be by my side through the birth of my child. I wanted and need her through the treatments. I am a stage 3 breast cancer survivor. I just finished cyberknife radiation because I have meningioma, a skull-based tumor. I had a lot of decisions to be made, and I needed her input, support, because Samuel's heinous crime, I did not have my sister here to lean on. To this day, I have nightmares that someone is chasing me. I am screaming in my sleep, and my husband wakes me. I am drenched in sweat. I fear that if Samuel is released again, it will get worse. I do have support from my church friends, my family, and my friends who I do talk to. They help me through the tough times. Please remember the facts when you make your decision. Samuel mentioned to 2 friends he wanted to carry out a fantasy, rob and kill someone. Well, he did, my sister Karen, and he also raped her. He was on the run for 8.5 to 9 years before he was caught, admitted and sentenced to 71 years for raping and shooting my sister in the eye and left for dead. Don't think he won't do it again. The way a killer won't kill again is if he is dead or behind bars for the rest of his life. Thank you for hearing what I have to say. I only want justice for my sister Karen. Please do not let him walk the streets. My sister sure can't. Please deny parole. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Luann. I know it was difficult, but thank you for your presence. Now we're going to hear from the Assistant District Attorney for Vernon Parish, Prosecutor Devastating. Morning.
My name is Cynthia Lapsier, I'm the first assistant attorney in Vernon Parish, Louisiana. And
Just a little bit louder, Ms. Lapsier.
yes. To see what it would feel like. To see what it would feel like. Kidnap, rape, and murder a young girl. That's what he told his friends in the barracks. He wanted to see what it felt like. Samuel Galbraith is not your average human being. Samuel Galbraith has no respect for human life. He has no empathy for the suffering of others. And no place in our society. 26 years I've been prosecuted. It's like the insurance commercial you hear on TV quite often. You've seen a thing or two, so we know a thing or two. Well, I've seen a thing or two, and I know a thing or two. I've prosecuted murder cases of all sorts in my career. They nearly all start with a disagreement, jealousy, anger, strong human emotion. It's what leads to most murders. Usually. This is the first murder case I've been involved with in my career where the reason for the rape and murder was for sport. Nothing more than sport. Pure sport. Samuel Galbraith does not need to be out of prison. I know one thing or two because I've seen it. So after telling his running buddies about his twisted up fantasy, he couldn't help himself. He acted on it. November 21st, 1988, 2 days before Thanksgiving, Karen Hill was called into work. She was 21 years old, and her husband was stationed at Fort Post. It was his birthday, as he just told me. She had a job as a clerk at the Circle K on Entrance Road near the base. So at 9 p.m. that evening, on her husband's birthday, she gets called to cover a shift for someone. Being a responsible, hardworking person that she was, she accepted the shift and went into work. During the night, she was on the telephone with her friend, who was in labor, until approximately 2:55 a.m. At about 4:25 a.m., the newspaper delivery man came in to make his morning deliveries of papers. She was nowhere to be found. Her purse was there, she did not. He called the authorities. In 1988, there were no video cameras installed in the stores. Samuel Galbraith abducted her at gunpoint from the store. He put her in his vehicle. He drove her to a remote area off of Highway 10 in Vernon Parish, where he had trained before. He was familiar with there, right next to the base. There in the dark, he raped her, confirmed by autopsy. When he was finished, he tied her to a tree. Karen was looking at Samuel Galbraith when he pulled the trigger and shot her in the face. I surmise she was begging him for mercy at the time. The bullet entered the left eye, entered her brain, and her life ended at 21 years old. Around 8:30 a.m. that same morning, 2 hunters were walking through the woods and found Karen's body still tied to the tree. Samuel Galbraith later told his roommate he had carried out his fantasy and had kidnapped, raped, and murdered a girl. 9 years go by, in which Samuel Galbraith lived a free man. He moved to Texas, went to work for his daddy, as he says, got married, moved on with his life. On December 4, 1995, the case broke. Leesville Police Department received a tip about a homicide that happened in 1988 or 1989. The caller stated he met up with some old Army buddies. They were talking about people they served with, and one of the guys stated Galbraith messed up the most. A friend told the caller Galbraith killed a woman while stationed at Fort Polk. The caller stated another person, John Higgins, was told about the murder by Galbraith. The caller stated Galbraith's first name, Samuel. 10 days later, on December the 14th, 1995, Detective Williams with the Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office received a call from a man named Eric Weiss. Mr. Weiss was roommates Samuel Galbraith while stationed at Fort Polk. Mr. Weiss stated he came home one morning and Galbraith told him he robbed the store, took the girl, and shot her in the head. A few months later, February 1st, 1996, Galbraith was interviewed by Detective Smith and Hilton with the Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office. The detective spoke with Mr. Galbraith for some time before he remembered he might have been roommates with Eric Weiss and his having owned a 1987 GMC Jeep at the time and having a .22 caliber pistol. A DNA sample was obtained from Mr. Galbraith. Further identification, Samuel Galbraith was stationed at Fort Polk in Vernon Parish during the time the crime was committed. The investigation revealed Mr. Galbraith's blood was genetically consistent with semen found in the body of Mrs. Hill. The investigation revealed Galbraith drove a vehicle which had tires consistent with the type of tire treads found at the crime scene. The investigation revealed Galbraith admitted he kidnapped and killed Mrs. Hill. On April 23rd, 1997, Mr. Galbraith was arrested by the Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office and was charged with first-degree murder. He was later billed with additional charges of aggravated kidnapping, attempted rape, and armed robbery. But wait, there's more. Unfortunately, it appears he seemed to like how it felt. Remember how Karen was abducted from a convenience store? Roughly 6 months later, after her abduction, on May 29th, 1989, Pamela Miller, age 23, was last seen at a convenience store on the north side of Leesville. Her remains were discovered November 24th, some months later, 1989, in a remote area of the military reservation used for training Fort Polk soldiers. And get this, Samuel Galbraith trained at that very location where the body was found only 1 month. Then, February 20th, 1990, Tammy Call, a student at Leesville High School, disappeared. From where? near a convenience store on the north side of Leesville. Annie's remains were discovered almost 8 years later on November 18, 1997, in a remote wooded area on the Fort Hope military reservation. What's interesting, even more interesting, is there were no such killings in Vernon Parish, such as this, before Samuel Galbraith arrived, and none after he left Vernon Parish. Chief Detective Rhonda Jordan of the Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office updated me yesterday on these 2 cases. These cases remain open, ongoing investigations being worked between the Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office and the Criminal Investigation Division of the United States Army, referred to as CID. DNA testing through CID is ongoing and is benefited by continuing advances in the field of DNA extraction. Touching briefly on the programs. All of these programs he's completed, that's fine and good. It's self-serving, keep that in mind. He earns good time credit. He's maxed out his good time credit on these. Also, the assessments that he's low risk, that's conducted in a vacuum of an institution. Nobody can predict or really know what's going to trigger Samuel Galbraith when he pulls up to a convenience store. Nobody can predict that. The plea. There was a plea agreement. No case is perfect. It does not change the facts of what happened. He admitted what he did. He's already got a big break through the plea agreement. He benefited greatly because it excluded and concluded the possibility of a trial and conviction for first-degree murder and a possible death penalty. That was his big reward. He's already got it. He's already received it. Sentence was attempted aggravated rape, 50 years, and manslaughter, down from first-degree murder, 21 years, run consecutive with each other for a total of 71 years. Now, back then, there was something called an 85% rule. These victims believe that he should have served 59 years. Now we have what's called the old timers law, which has been amended numerous times since 1991. And it presently says that after serving 20 years of sentence and turning age 45, and the sentence is for 35 years or longer, a person becomes parole eligible, even though a violent crime offender. So here we are. Our problem was that was not considered part of the plea deal by these victims. They believe they agreed to a plea that he would serve 85%. That's and what makes it even more unfair to the victims is that he was out of jail for 9 years. He had 9 years after this heinous crime to get a head start on getting that age 45. 9 years of freedom, 9 extra years. Samuel Galbraith was a soldier in the United States Armed Forces. His duty was to serve his country and protect his fellow soldiers. Instead, he kidnaps, rapes, and murders the young wife of a fellow soldier. That's who Samuel Galbraith is. Once again. Another thing, every few years, these victims have to go through this. It's appalling. They have to relive this nightmare of sorrow, grief, anxiety, fear, helplessness, of wondering whether or not he's about to get released. This is torture for the victims. It's torture, and it needs to stop. $779 signatures, I heard before, in opposition to this man's release. 25 personally written letters in opposition to this man's release. One of the letters that I reviewed was not from a family member, was not from a family friend. It was from a command sergeant major of the United States Army who opposes this soldier's release from prison. He wants him to serve 71 years. As you noted, Vernon Parish Sheriff is opposed. The judge of Division A is opposed, strongly opposed. The district attorney is opposed, as you can obviously see, whom I represent today. Samuel Galbraith is here today. This is what I want. Samuel Galbraith is here today seeking your mercy. He gave no mercy to Karen. He shot her in the face while she was looking at him, begging him for mercy. Samuel Galbraith abducted, raped, and killed Karen Hill for nothing more than sport. Here's his sport right here. This sweet young girl, 21 years old, hadn't even reached the prime of her life. This is what he did. Tied her to a tree. Here's his sport. It's right here. That's what gets me, because she still has her wedding ring on. Who has her wedding ring? You know what I didn't hear here today? I didn't hear him say, I'm sorry. Everybody around him said it for him. But if you notice, he never said it. Now, I'm sure he's going to say it in his closing now, but he had a chance to say it right out of the gate. That wasn't what was on his mind. His freedom is what's on his mind. He was out. I sincerely ask this parole board to have mercy on the family of Karen Hill. Keep him locked up. Don't let him take anybody else's baby girl. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lamister. Mr. Galbraith? Would you like to make a brief closing statement?
Yes, sir. I sure would. You know, I mean, what I did was terrible. I mean, there's no words to describe what I did to the family. As I've stated in every other parole hearing and stuff I've ever, been in, I am truly sorry. I mean, I cannot do anything. I wish that there was something I could do, other than tell them I know she was a hardworking, trying to make a living for her family. She didn't deserve anything that I'd done other than just to live a productive life. Like I said, I can't say sorry enough. I mean, that those things won't change. I mean, I don't know what to tell them other than that I know that the DA there and stuff, she makes it sound like it's just it's a formality that I'm saying that, but I'm telling you that I've been saying that for years. As far as that goes, I don't know. I know that they are pissed at me. I'm sure that they want to run me through burning patch of cactus and stuff, and I would feel the exact same way. And I understand that. I've written a letter to DOC and stuff, to Karen Hill's family and stuff, and it's been there for years. apologizing, and if they wanted to talk, through DOC and stuff, more than happy to talk to them and stuff, and if I can provide anything for them, be it closure, to look me in my eyes, however they want to do it, I am willing to do that for them, because I can't do enough for them, for what all I took from them. As far as Ms. Cynthia trying to tell you about other things and stuff, I've told my lawyer a number of times, he's right there on there, hasn't said anything. I'd be more than willing to take a plea lie detector test anytime feel like it about any of these other crimes that they think that I was involved in. I'm not. I don't know what they're talking about, and y'all put that as a condition of my parole, however y'all would like to do it. But I'm willing to do it because I know that I'm not. So anyway, I appreciate what y'all's day that y'all given me before y'all. I know that I've heard a lot of people, including my own family, but most of all Karen Hill's family and her friends and stuff. I think that there was a lady, Miss Penny Stewart, I believe, and I think that her letter was in y'all's file. I wrote her back and and spoke with her and stuff, a couple of times and stuff through letter, and and told her exactly what happened, how I feel, what I did, and what I didn't, and if given the chance, and I understand that it puts y'all in that today y'all are in a rough position and stuff, I mean, there is a lot of victim opposition and stuff on there, and rightfully so. That I will not. Everybody wants somebody to believe in them, needs somebody to believe in them, and I'm hoping that y'all believe in me today. Whenever I tell y'all, I will not do anything other than go home, make y'all proud, make my family proud, and take care of my responsibilities in my community and stuff. I am a changed man, regardless of what, some people might say. I think that my 27 years or 26 years, excuse me, sir, of doing the right thing, of only having 2 write-ups in there, of the things that I've done. You can hide things for a little while from people, but you can't do it all the time. You fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool them all the time. And I do want to be that good person. I think that the evidence shows that. And I just hope that y'all will give me that chance. And so I thank y'all, and I leave it. I do apologize to Karen Hill's family. I know that y'all don't think anything of it, and it won't probably change your mind ever. But I am truly sorry for what I took from y'all, because it was a precious thing, and life is precious. And through that act, I understood that it did open my eyes to a lot of things. I was a selfish young teenager and stuff at the time, cared about nothing but myself, and it did open my eyes to the person that I did not want to be, that I do want to be and continue to be now. So again, I am truly sorry from the bottom of my heart, and I will leave it at that. I'm sorry. And thank y'all for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Galbraith. Mr. Nordyke, would you close it up for us, please?
I will. I have several things I want to address that came up in the victim opposition, and I want to start with this more victim issue. That has come up in 2 prior hearings. Ms. Wise will remember, she was on the first panel, as I recall. And it came up then, it's come up every other time. And I said then, polygraphing, if you don't believe it, polygraphing, but quit throwing accusations at people that are unfounded and without evidence. Pure speculation. And if you think I'm angry, you're right. It's come up time and time again, and it's just pure speculation. If you think he did this, parole him, and the second he walks out the front gate, arrest him for those murders. That's what you do with these sorts of allegations. You don't just keep throwing them out there and hoping some glue will stick on the wall. So I am a little perturbed about the continued allegations of wrongdoing that don't seem to have any facts to support them. And if they do, then quit making allegations, do what law enforcement does, and that's arrest people. Just do it. The second thing is there was some denigration of the risk scores on Mr. Galbraith. And I don't want to spend too much time, but I know a little bit about this risk program. And I don't think anybody has ever said that it is 100% accurate. But what we do say is that when you take, let's just use 100 people. Out of 100 people, 86 or 88 of them will conform to that low risk, no recidivism category. And of the other 14%, give or take, we're not saying they're going to go out and tie somebody to a tree and commit a murder. That's not what you say about recidivism. All you're saying is they will commit some other offense, and it could be littering that will be a reoffense. It is rare that the reoffense is as significant as the first one. That's just not the way the system works. So I think the low risk category is correct for Sam because it is backed up by his behavior for the last 26 years with only 2 write-ups. Sam said something in his closing that I've seen over my 40 years of doing this, and that is you can hold your mouth right for only so long in this business. And that is particularly true in the pressure cooker of a prison. And when you live in a dorm with 50 to 70 other guys, not all of whom are socialized as well as you might be, it is a pressure cooker. And if you can hold it together and not get a series of write-ups and not get in fights and learn how to control yourself in that environment, that's a pretty good indicator, I think, of how well you do elsewhere. Aunt Donna did a magnificent job of summarizing Sam's accomplishments. And frankly, she said most of the things that I would normally say at this point about 100 hours pre-release and anger management. He's completed all phases of the Madison County Sex Offenders Program. Every program the Department of Corrections and this board would normally ask him to get, he's done. He's done it. And he's done it long ago. This is not some Johnny come lately to the program. He's been doing it since he hit the prison gates, basically. It was also said that he should never be paroled. Let me tell you, he is going to be paroled. He will be paroled on good time parole. So the idea that he will never be paroled is just simply not correct. He's going to be paroled someday, and it's sooner rather than later. Which brings me to what I think may be the most important point I try to make, and that is that the first hearing was a unanimous grant for Mr. Galbraith. He came from within 1 hour of walking out the prison gates, and I remember this vividly because it was a Friday evening. My wife and I were actually out to eat when I started getting, my phone blew up with phone calls from everybody about this release. And the release was rescinded 1 hour before he was about to walk out the prison gate. And it turns out that there had been some high up political phone calls made to stop this release. That denial of release or that rescission of release was fought in federal court, not by me. I couldn't do it. I'm a witness to that. But fought in federal court. That case was granted by a federal district judge who said, release Johnny. He shouldn't have ever been rescinded. Release Sam. He shouldn't have ever been rescinded. He should have been released when he was supposed to be released. And here's the most important part for this board. He should have been released on the same terms and conditions that the original panel gave, which would be far more minimal than I suspect this panel would do today, were they to grant him today. Today is the opportunity. And here's why. Here's the reason why. The federal appeals court has had this case briefed to them and argued to them, I think in February. I don't know because, again, I wasn't part of it. But my understanding is it could be decided any time now. If this parole board would find a way to parole him to Texas and put all the conditions that you would want to put on him, guess what that does? That moots the federal court appeal. And he's on out of here. the federal court doesn't have anything to do with it anymore. And you can put the conditions on him that you would not be able to put on him if the federal court ruled in his favor. So for that reason, I ask you to give Sam serious consideration and consider paroling him now, where conditions can be placed on him, where he'll never cross the Sabine River again. And this is the last time Louisiana will have to fool with him other than collecting parole fees. So thank you.
And you can rest assured that this, I and I'm almost sure the other two members will base our decision on the crime that he was convicted of.
Thank you.
Is the panel ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Galbraith, I was assigned your case, so I will be voting first. Mr. Galbraith, and this is my opinion. Louisiana incarcerates an individual for 3 reasons. The first reason is to rehabilitate that individual and try to correct the bad habits or the bad qualities in that individual. And I think you've been rehabilitated. You've taken all the programs, you've completed sex offender treatment, you've completed anger management, you hold a high position with the Facilities Magazine. You're a very intelligent individual. The second reason for incarceration is isolation. They want to isolate that individual from the rest of society because he is a danger and a risk to public safety. The verdict is out on that. I don't know whether or not you're a danger. Maybe, maybe not. Time will tell. The third reason is retribution. A person is incarcerated because they need to be punished for the bad acts they commit. This is my opinion. This does not reflect the opinion of the other 2 members of the panel. 26 years is insufficient time for the egregious, violent, sexual nature of your offenses. If you would have served 35, 40 years, I may have a different decision today. But you've only served 26 years for brutally killing a human being. I don't think that's sufficient. Secondly, you made a plea deal. You entered an agreement with the state of Louisiana and the victim's family. In turn for not getting a death penalty or life in prison without benefits, you chose. Nobody else chose. You chose to make the plea deal and accepted 21 years for manslaughter and 50 years for attempted aggravated rape. You signed off, you allocated to the judge, and you agreed. Thirdly, the express opposition from the entire legal community. The Judge Bennett, the DA's office, Sheriff Sam Kraft of Leesville, adamantly opposed. There's overwhelming opposition from the victim's family, the community she lived in, the leaders of that community wrote letters of opposition. There was a online petition when 779 people signed that knew the facts of this case and were in opposition. Mr. Galbraith, you will not live up to that plea agreement because the state of Louisiana in its revised statute say that you are eligible for a good time release in 2029. Some 36 years before you completed your 71 year sentence that you agreed to. For all the reasons I just articulated, I am denying the request. This is why.
Thank you, Chairman. To the victim family, Karen Hill's family, my sincere condolences to you all. I just, no words. I was on the panel in 2016 as well. And since then, I've had the opportunity to go to some training. One of the training is said, you've done a great harm. There's no debate about that. You did a great harm to the community, to yourself, to the victim's family. You've done a great harm to your family. You've done a great harm. All we can ask is that you heal yourself. And based on your institutional record, what's been brought forward, you've healed yourself. And then we further ask that you help others. And you've done that. You've helped others over these years. That's all I can ask. You have good programs, good institutional record, low risk, excellent family support, excellent transition plan. For that reason, my vote is to grant to Texas only, out-of-state residents to Texas, and that you volunteer in an organization that works with individuals who are victims of violent crimes and work with individuals who are victims of sex crime. That is my vote.
Thank you, Mrs. Wise. Mr. Freeman.
Okay, you know, these cases put you in a quandary. But to me, and this is to me, yeah, behind bars, you have done great. You are totally rehabilitated. I don't think there's nothing else you can do. But the biggest thing to me is that the punishment versus the rehabilitation. And you're not even close on the punishment to me. You're not even in the neighborhood of the punishment for the crime that you committed and that you agreed to with that sentence. I want to thank both families for showing up, but my vote today is to deny.
Mr. Galbraith, you have received 2 votes to deny your request for early release and 1 vote to grant your request. Therefore, today, your request has been denied. You have a good day. Okay, that wraps up, completes the docket at Elyan Hunt. We're going to adjourn at 10:32 a.m. Thank you, board, going along.
How does one unpack this? Where do I start? This is the second time watching this, and I have a book full of notes. There are so many articles on this. And it's overwhelming my there's so much frustration and rage. We can actually spend like an hour just following up on all the information of this case, but must I remind you that he was successfully paroled by the parole board in 2017? Let's go look at the images. It was Miss Wise, Miss Renatza, and I believe it was also possibly Mr. Mirabella. It's not clear. I don't have, here we go, I'll share. I'll share a screenshot. And to think, is that Mr. Mirabella? To think that Miss Wise again grants him a unanimous, grants him parole. And not only that, but she puts as a condition that he, as part of his community service, meets with victims of sex crimes. What victim wants to meet with that? Can you, in what universe does a victim of assault want to meet with him? And you know, the board, this story is very similar to the story that I covered that then got my channel attacked by Louisiana Parole Board, and I'm almost nervous. If you're not familiar with that, I can leave. But yeah, I covered a case that they also granted commutation, and there was serious pushback, and they reversed it. They said they found contraband in his cell, and in this case, they granted him. And then there was so much uproar, the governor placed an order not to release him, as you heard, 1 hour before he was getting out. If you can just see if there's any, like, you know, the idea that the victims had to go through that pain, that they had to wait an hour to even know he would be put back in, but the idea that he thought he was going to be free. He packed his bag. He packed his extra pillow, his slippers, whatever it is that his earthly possessions are, and he was walking out that door an hour before, and then he had to go through the disappointment of them saying that, you know why they said he couldn't get out? They said the reason they came up with was that the family wasn't notified about the hearing. And, you know, this was before the hearing was on YouTube. We could do a Freedom of Information Act request and pull the recording. But I bet you the DA wasn't there either. Although we'll go over more documents and see, because as soon as he was given parole, there was so much uproar. There was so much like, are you guys nuts? It makes you wonder. Now, again, if the parole board's sitting there, if there's no DA to talk the way that she spoke very passionately, man, she was good. I am just, you know, she was a DA out of a Hollywood script. And to the board's credit, Or you might say, but I timed all of the speeches because I was curious. Because again, this was the second time I saw it, and I got upset every time they were stopping the victims' speeches. But they let the DA speak for 17 minutes and 40 seconds, give or take a second. So, it's in, however you want to look at that. Again, we have a lot of material we can go after, but I just want to get certain things off my chest, and then we can go into that. You can always skip ahead if you don't want to hear me. The attorney, we've seen this attorney many times. He is probably, if not the best, one of the best that we've seen. He's consistently, no BS. He's straight to the point. And to his credit, he made very strong legal arguments. He said, hey, if this isn't how it works, you can't have a DA bring up these other cases that's making my client looking to be a serial killer as part of the testimony to keep him locked up. If you think he is, then let him out and rearrest him. And, I believe that he is a serial killer. I think anyone with a little bit of common sense would believe it. He had 2 victims, similar ages, similar scenarios, similar time frame, left in military bases, picked up at convenience stores, and the sheriff's office and the military is investigating it. And, apparently there's the only thing that they have, of course, is DNA. And the problem is that there's no DNA left. I mean, the bodies were discovered months later, in cases years later. But that's what they need. They need the DNA, or they'll never be able to actually convict him. And he says he'll take a lie detector test. I think we all know lie detector tests are ridiculous. They are completely ridiculous, and a sociopath will have no problem passing a lie detector test. This case reminds me so much of Russell Williams, the colonel, the Canadian colonel who was it's just so similar. I mean, I guess in a sense they're both military men. It's not. I think you get what I mean when I say so similar. Then his it's like the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree. His mother gets up and speaks, and you can't fault a mother for wanting her son, but what she was saying was so inappropriate. Hoping the family will forgive my son for the act that he did. That's what she said. I want the family to forgive my son for the act that he did. Why don't you spell it out what he did? It wasn't an act that he did. You don't have a right to ask the family for anything. You don't have a right to ask for anything. And she gets up here and she says that. She says, I know what they went through. She said, I know what they went through. No, you don't. She goes on to say, he is my only child. I ask that you please forgive him. You still get to see your son. You're with him right there in the room. You don't know what they went through. She kept saying, he's remorseful. That's the key to change. And it's like, you know, he really did not appear to be remorseful. We have seen a lot of people, at least, that can fake it, or if they're not faking it, look like they're pretty remorseful. There was nothing there. His final statement was just like, I know she was hardworking. I can't say sorry enough. You know what I mean? I don't know what to say. I know they are pissed at me. You know what I mean? I know they're pissed. You know? You know what I mean? If they want, they can look me in the eye. I wrote a letter. And I would take a lie detector test to prove I didn't do those other things. It was you took their daughter, a 21-year-old newly married girl, 21. You're like the DA said, not even in her prime yet. You assaulted her. You tied her against a tree. You put a gun to her face, and as a demented, you could only imagine. And to think that the parole board voted for her, and Miss Wise did it again. And you know, the board did it because there was no victim opposition, because the victims weren't informed, and it's now becoming a pattern. We have seen it maybe 3 or 4 times where the victims have come up after someone has been commuted or during, and so we never got notified. And there was a case that sticks out to my mind, maybe you've seen it, where the victim said, we were never notified, and Miss Renatza shot back. And she was very adamant and in a defensive fashion. And now when I put 2 and 2 together, I think it's because she probably got heat for this case of not notifying them. And she just felt she had to say, no, they were notified. Our staff does a great job. No, they don't do a great job. It turns out a letter was sent to their address in New York, which was like 20 years old. And they had moved to Louisiana. Talking about this case, how they didn't know that he had a parole hearing, and also to think that they signed a deal, and then because of the law changing, and the victims were insinuating that his defense attorney somehow knew more about the 1055 deal more than the DA itself, and to think her father died, I think it was 3 months later from a broken heart at the age of 50. It was her husband's birthday. He's a soldier too. And probably he's in the same military base, to think that he would then have seen the murderer probably walking by they would have known each other. They might have even been friends, acquaintances. I still can't get over how, even with all this information, Miss Wise would vote again to release. Forget the fact that I think common sense is like a high odds that he is a serial killer. But what makes him worthy of getting out, Miss Wise? And to think that he actually has a good time date in a handful of years. He's actually going to get out unless they can somehow pull a DNA miracle he's going to get out in, what was it, 2029? Let's go check out some of these links. This is the kind of case that I'm gonna watch myself talking about this and wish I had said 1,000 more things. So here's the information. Let me see. What do we make sure I'm looking at the right stuff? Okay. I've got all these links already here. Here's a newspaper. Like, thank you, Richard. Richard pulled all this research for me, and that's why it's so helpful, because if I didn't have the research ahead of time, I probably would have missed what a big case this was, and wouldn't have had this already put together. So this is actually a video of what happened when he was, because this article was written in 2019. So let's watch this. You see, he blames the governor. So let's go check this out right now.
2 years ago, KALB brought you the story of a convicted killer who left a soldier's wife tied to a tree back in 1988 and how he nearly walked free.
Samuel Galbraith's parole was rescinded days before his release date following media reports and public outcry, a decision his attorney continues to fight in court. Lydia Magianas tells us where things stand now.
Convicted killer Samuel Galbraith is suing the state of Louisiana for rescinding his parole in April 2017, just 2 days before he was set to walk free after serving nearly a third of his sentence for a 1988 homicide. The former Fort Polk soldier was sentenced to 71 years for manslaughter and the attempted first-degree rape of 21-year-old Karen Hill, who was found tied to a tree with a gunshot wound in her left eye. Vernon Parish District Attorney Asa Skinner's strong opposition to Galbraith's parole hasn't changed.
Somebody like that should not be granted, in my opinion, leniency to this extent to where he is released back into society.
Galbraith's attorneys are asking a judge to reinstate his parole, citing violation of due process. In 2017, the Louisiana Parole Board said a clerical error in notifying the victim's family led to their decision. Galbraith's attorney disputes that, calling it a fabrication of the truth. The suit also says Galbraith became a political football for Governor John Bel Edwards' criminal justice reform proposals. Attorneys also say the board failed to provide the convicted killer a chance to challenge the rescission.
And just because you apply for parole doesn't mean you'll get it. Most defendants don't have 9 years of freedom after they commit a horrendous crime like this.
I guess he's got the right to claim it, but I've got the right to say that I don't think anything was violated of him. As a matter of fact, I think he got off very easy. I wouldn't have been a bit bothered with it if they'd give him the death.
But justice for Karen's family isn't the only reason why retired VPSO investigators Marvin Hilton and Kenneth Williams say Galbraith should stay behind bars. The veteran detectives say Galbraith is still considered a person of interest in the homicides of Pamela Miller and Tammy Call, both similar to Karen's and occurring when Galbraith was stationed at Fort Polk.
I want to see my family, your family, everyone else's family be safe. We certainly need to not allow individuals that have committed violent crimes such as this back out in the public.
He may refrain from it for a short time, but he will revert back. And all the schools that I went to, all the studies that's been done on serial killers, they don't quit just out of the clear blue sky.
Although Galbraith's attorneys describe him as a model prisoner, Williams' memory of Karen's lifeless body sits in stark contrast with Galbraith's prison record.
I'll live with it the rest of my life. It doesn't leave. And the pictures that I saw of Karen Hill tied to that tree and shot is in my mind just like it was yesterday.
VPSO's person of interest has never been questioned. When the Texas native was extradited to Louisiana in 1997 in connection to Karen's death, Hilton says Galbraith was uncooperative, refusing to talk about Miller and Call.
Galbraith denied any contact with Karen Hill, he stated that, certainly he didn't do it.
For now, Galbraith's call for freedom is stalled in the courts, continued without date. Meanwhile, detectives are still solving the puzzle of Pamela and Tammy's tragic deaths, which they say might not be as much of a mystery after all.
He's a suspect, not a person again.
In Vernon Parish, Lydia Magallanes for News Channel 5, your local station.
That was a good summary. I should have clicked on that right when we finished the hearing. Can you imagine a serial killer somehow getting this deal where he doesn't get the needle, but instead he gets the sentence, which in theory they thought, well, he'll never get out alive. Then he gets parole hearings after just serving like less than a third of his sentence. He gets approved an hour before he gets out. He files federal petition, which I have here. I can share with you. And my understanding is that the Supreme Court agreed with him, and I don't understand the court document enough to explain why, if the Supreme Court agreed with him, why they haven't let him out yet. We can look over that soon. But here's basically the article written in 2017 that they I don't know if we need to go through this because, here, I think it says, so during the recent reviews of the media outlet, the mother's parole hearing was scheduled October 20th. See, here it is, that the hearing was mailed the address to the New York address in Albany rather than Illinois. Cheryl Renatza, our dear friend Cheryl Renatza, who still is chairwoman of the State Parole Board, said in a prepared statement Friday that the Department of Public Safety Corrections, the parole board, therefore decided to hold another hearing for McWilliams of the Vernon Parish District Attorney to participate. Oh, yeah, so the district attorney was not there. Now we know. They had the hearing without opposition, which makes it much easier to understand why he would have been released. Because we've seen what hearings look like without opposition. News of the impending release was first reported on WBRZ, and then they didn't return phone calls. So now 40 pleaded guilty to manslaughter. And they would have just looked at, a manslaughter charge. They wouldn't have looked into so much. And we've seen them let people out that have done worse than manslaughter and assault. But the idea, I'm sorry, I keep going back to Miss Wise voted for him again. Can you explain that to me? And he was free. I think he was free. He thought he got away with it. But because he couldn't keep his mouth shut and he had told this to his soldier buddies, then they were able to link the DNA in 1997, 10 years later or so, they were able to prove it was him. I would they probably don't have the recording of that. Of that interrogation. While I'm on this, what I'm remembering is that they're all talking about how he's changed and he's better man and he's all these things that they're talking about. But it was like, he was never a troubled, you never knew. He was a perfect sociopath. He graduated high school. He never even touched drugs in high school. He went to the army. He left the army. He was discharged honorably. Then he went like another 10 years. He got married. He held a job. He has no record. So it's like, what are you talking about when everyone is speaking and saying he's changed, he feels remorse, he's better? It's like, he was always a wolf in sheep's clothing. How is it not obvious to you that he's not as dangerous today as he was then? Oh, well, I did some psychedelics. Yeah, we all know psychedelics make you go on a, he told his soldier buddies, I want to know what it feels like. It was a sport to him. Oh, man, I love this assistant DA. You know a thing or two. What was it? Like the car commercial. Seen a thing or two. I know a thing or two. And I know a thing or two. She's done a lot of cases, and, people kill because their emotions are high. In this sense, it was because it was a sport. He wanted to know what it felt like. He wanted to know what it felt like. And you want to vote to release him? Something interesting also that his attorney brought up. Well, both attorneys, the DA brought up is the low risk score. And we always talk about that, the low risk score. And we always say, they give the biggest predators the lowest risk score. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's so obvious that it's a ridiculous system. They put people who are basically guaranteed to reoffend, as in like child predators, and they give them low risk scores. So we've always talked about how ridiculous and broken and lame that system is. Also, they had 709 signatures. I found the petition here. I believe it's the same petition. I'll put the link in the description if you want to go sign it. But this one seems to have much more than this one has 1,626 people that have signed. Yeah, look, these March 20th, 2020. I mean, these are, well, I guess I don't know if they're referring to this one, but this says 1,600 signed it, much more than the 709 signatures the DA mentioned. He has another link. He like sued the correction facility because he got like a smoking infraction and he wasn't happy about it. This guy actually took like the prison to court. Can you imagine that? 2009. Let's see this one. I don't know if this is redundant. DA blast parole decision. Vernon District Attorney Asa Skinner said Samuel confessed to his barrack roommates that he carried out his fantasy of kidnapping. It's interesting that he confessed to them. In 1988, he was living in Leesville with her husband, a soldier stationed at Fort Pork. He was also stationed at Fort Pork, like we discussed. The case was unsolved for 9 years. And he would have gotten away with it if his soldier buddies didn't say, wait a minute, we actually think he did it. When he said, well, he confessed, he carried out his fantasy. He carried out his fantasy. They just weren't sure, you know. I guess like a soldier buddy, you wouldn't believe it. You'd be like, 9 years later, they broke their silence in a reunion. So they all met up. They're at this reunion. Think about this. 9 years later, they're at a reunion. They're probably, you know, all talking about how their lives are all screwed up, who got divorced, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, you know, remember that guy? I actually think he did it. And they're like, you know what? I think he did. And they put 2 and 2 together. Good for them. They called and they said that occurred during the time frame. And the details they provided were an exact match to the Hills case. So they had the details. The detectives flew to Cincinnati, Boston, and Philadelphia to track down the 3 men. So they went and interviewed the 3 men from 3 different states. Then they located our good boy, Galbraith Samuel, in Texas. And then he turned himself into Vernon Parish authorities in 1997. DNA evidence from the scene tied him. You know, if they were able to pull DNA, well, no, she was found a day later. That's why. The other victims weren't found till months later or even years later. He was sentenced to 71 years in prison. But the new laws on parole eligibility allowed his case to be reviewed last year. Skinner said eligibility can be reviewed if an inmate has served over 20 years and is over the age of 45. You know, they create these new laws, which in so many cases, I like them. I agree with them because there are a lot of people that are locked up that shouldn't be locked up that long. But then you have people that fall into the bucket that have no business falling into that bucket. This law was not created so that he could get out. On May 29th, 1989, 23-year-old, this is who they discussed, the other 2 victims. Pamela Miller was last seen at a convenience store on North Side, February 20th, 1990. Leesville High School student Tammy Call went missing from a convenience store. They're all convenience stores. And they're all in the same area. Their bodies were found in remote wooded areas at Fort Polk. Skinner said no such crimes occurred before or after he left. I know it's just circumstantial, but I mean, it's his attorney's point. It's go arrest him. Go say he did it. And they don't have the DNA evidence. That's the problem. But I wonder if they take the chance when he does get out, I wonder if they arrest him, whether they have DNA evidence or not. Despite acknowledging that she called a strong opposition from law enforcement, the judge and the victim's family, parole board chairperson Cheryl Renazza denied Skinner's request, saying the information in his letter didn't meet the requirements for a rehearing. Oh, because he wanted a rehearing after. Right. This is what it was. They want, because he was granted parole, and then Ms. Renazza said, we're not doing a rehearing. And the record reflects that the panel members did not grant parole lightly, but only after serious and thorough consideration, Ms. Renazza wrote. For Hill's mother, Jessie McWilliams, Galbraith impending release has reopened wounds you can only imagine. But thankfully, the governor overturned it. really in a way which you think would be unprecedented, which would open up precedents for some of the other families we've seen that weren't invited to hearings to maybe make some type of appeal. But you need people pulling strings. It's interesting seeing this, the way the legal system works here. It's just reinforcement that it's like a mafia. I mean, they're writing and rewriting laws as they go and as they want. And we saw them when they did that to my channel. They've put like, what, 60 something copyright strikes on my channel, which was completely illegal. And they did it over the course of like a month, kept doing it and doing it. The Attorney General of Louisiana was personally copy striking my YouTube channel because I was showing cases that they didn't want the public to see, even though it's public hearing. He gets to keep his honorable discharge. Can you imagine? Here's the court document. Which was this was a civil lawsuit. Here he sued, basically saying that his court so habeas corpus relief, claiming that his rescission of his parole violated his due process. And wanted an order pending appeal. The motion for stay is denied for the following reasons. Oh, it may be overcome if a judge orders. You know, I don't think I have the bandwidth to go over this right now, but it is an interesting. I would like to understand it. How he was released, and then it's my understanding that I think if someone else can put this in the comment section, maybe I'll pin it. But again, it's the idea that he had the Supreme Court, my understanding, agree that it was illegal for Louisiana to overturn his parole hearing. I just don't think I have the bandwidth to go over this right now. We're going into 2+ hours of this. However many you are still here, I salute you. There are so many things I know I want to touch on that I haven't, but I have a feeling that we're going to see, this is not the end. We're going to see more of this. And I think as long as the victim's family is put in pressure, there's going to be other political pressure to make sure that they do right by this. And hopefully they do have some breakthroughs in DNA. I don't know how it's possible. Maybe they'll bring charges with circumstantial evidence, or maybe they'll try to get him to somehow confess when he's free through something, you know, undercover thing. I don't know. But the idea that he will be set free soon is a disgrace. Proof that our system is very broken. With that, I'll let you go.